Hello, friends, and welcome to Film Chewing. We are here today to discuss the film Titane. I believe that's how you pronounce it, from 2021. It is a recommendation from Chris. And Chris, why?
You know, you do have a habit of asking me, have you any films that are kind of out there that you think I might like? And while this is definitely out there, this is a tester in terms of our friendship, I think, Steve, in some ways, because this film's right out there, like completely like past the moon, stars back, and we're on our way back round in some ways. But I also think it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I'm giving you grief, but I did enjoy it. I've been thinking about it since I watched it. We were gonna discuss it a few months ago, so it's been a few months. But I've been thinking about it since. So that's always good because it's a thought provoking film, and I had one theory when I finished watching it, and then when I rewatched it today, I'm kind of that theory is out the window. I'm not really sure. So yeah. But so what are your thoughts on this one? Well, I guess we should start with so you recommended it because it's out there?
Well, it's out there. I also, Julia Ducournau, who is the director of this, has two movies now. And I don't know if you've seen her first one, which is Raw, which, funny enough, has exactly the same main character names. We've got Alexia, and we have a Justine and stuff in it as well. So I think that's sort of interesting in its own right. But okay, why do I love it? I sort of love it because it sneaks up on you about what it's about and what it's doing. And the things that I was sort of critical of the first time that I watched it, actually this is the third time I've watched it now, everything has a reason for it the more times that I watch it. So the things that I think, oh, you really didn't need to do that, or you didn't need to, it's very clear. And if it has a big feeling as a film, I would say the biggest problem that it has is that it talks about so much. It's kind of like too much stuff, too many themes, too many things that it's touching on, and loses sort of, even when I'm watching it and I know what I'm looking for, I sort of bounce around it a little bit too much, rather than kind of going, oh, I can crystallize it into this one thing, especially towards the last 20 minutes of the film. I think there's just so much happening there. There's so many things come to a head and resolve, and all these little scenes that it's never told you exactly what's going on there, but you're sort of left to stew it over and kind of think about it the whole way through. And it is one of those films that every time I start it, I kind of go, God, this film isn't that great for about the first half an hour. I kind of think, oh, it's sort of this, and then by the time the film ends, I'm like right back in it going, Jesus, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. There is a lot going on. I think it's almost like two different films, because in the first 30 minutes or so, it's one thing, and then it completely changes to another thing. And I wonder who the main character is in this movie.
That's a great point, because I actually, it's one of those films that prompts you to go read. Let's find what people have written about Titane. And the main character, Alexei, or Adrian, depending on what you want to call him or her, is the very essence of an unlikable protagonist. Even taking away the fact that they're a serial killer, even once we get into the back half of the film where they're kind of past that, or at least exploring not being a serial killer in some ways, they're still not very likable, even right towards the end of the film. Have that kind of very threatening look about them, whereas our firefighter character, captain character, is sympathetic. And I do have a bit of a wild thought about him that I might come to a bit later.
So, all right. So the scene that a lot of people talk about in this movie, and I haven't looked up any theories or explained or anything like that. I just wanted to come in kind of without any preconceptions or just kind of brainstorm. But so I think the scene that most people talk about is the scene where she's in the car, and I guess having a moment with the car. I don't think it was that bad. I mean, of course, it's supposed to be shocking and troubling, but I didn't think it was that bad or that shocking.
Yeah, I think it's more shocking because of the outcome of it. It's the pregnancy, that the results out of it is the shocking part of it, because I mean, you could say, oh my god, it's so unrealistic, but it never sets itself in reality at all, this film. Like, it's not something that lives in like this tangible world that we think about. And I do like really how that is shot from the first part, like the car and the rhythmical bouncing of the car and the lights and the light behind the car and how that's all presented is sort of amazing. But I actually think it goes, but the scene goes back to even before that, nearly the very start of the film, where they present the car as glistening and with the oil dripping off it. It's almost presented as a sexual figure from the very, very start of the film. As you sort of have the idea that if that was a flesh and the sweat was glistening off it and the light was shining in a way, it would be accentuating its curves and all the rest of it. Again, a very sexualized kind of thing, and then presenting her as a sex worker in the car show, etc. And then to the fact that she then has sex with the car itself. The bit where she's inside the car, kind of strapped back and having sex that way, is a bit like, I mean, I probably don't need to see that amount of, even though it's not really graphic, it's like really taking you into the moment, that uncomfortable bit of watching somebody have sex, and you're kind of like going, oh god, I don't need to. And I think that is kind of the point of it as well. It may as well be a man and a woman at that stage, with that kind of close-up part where you're kind of going, oh, I don't need to see that close or that bit to it. And I think that's what it's sort of doing. I don't know what way you felt about it. Certainly it definitely makes you want to turn away, even though it's not that graphic, if that makes sense, that part.
Yeah, I didn't think about that at the beginning, about how it's presented at the beginning, but it's almost like a looming presence from the very beginning. Or I don't know, the car or cars or metal.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of, so the first half an hour, there's some pretty funny moments in it when she's killing the woman, and then her roommates come out, and she of course has to. And the awkward moment of, well, I guess I'm killing you now. Like, you can't leave any witnesses. That whole sequence is really great. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, it is
in a black and kind of way, but black humor kind of way. But yeah, so I think the experience with the car when she was young, the accident, she becomes almost like part of the car becomes a part of her, or the metal, I guess, or she has the recovery time. And so I kind of felt like those experiences, I guess, though, I know it's an overused term, but those traumatic experiences kind of stick with her and they affect her, and she carries them on and she passes them on, and it changes the course of her life in a pretty significant way. And she comes to almost love. I mean, she in the car show, she's on the car and dancing, and that's almost like a sexual thing too. I just thought like she becomes kind of one with that experience, or if that makes sense.
Well, I also think it's a contrast. So that bit where she's riding in the car and she becomes, or is, an objective sexual desire for a lot of the men there. Like, I've made the point in a previous video that I made that the car industry and cars in general are a very male dominated space. They're very much, those car shows are that, and the women are used as objects of desire, just like the cars. The two things are presented side by side in car shows, and that actually her being the woman and the car, they are sort of on a level in that world. So actually, the fact that they would mate, or that they would have a relationship, is sort of consistent with male attitudes towards both the cars and the women. And if ever there was an example of this film is maybe about too much sometimes, I think that's a pretty good example for me of being like, that's a lot to be wrestling your head around, while also she's sticking knitting needles into people's ears and brains and twisting them around and killing them and stuff and doing that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of really, really heady, thematically deep stuff around gender identity and about gender roles within society there that is sort of like dips in and out. It's almost like it just keeps pushing and then coming back and then pushing, then coming back, pushing, come back. And those kind of themes always keep repeating throughout the film. But that idea of her as a sex worker and the car being both on show, and then like the example of the man coming out to get her autograph and then thinking that he can take control of her just like you would take control of a car, is very, it's incredibly powerful, I think, especially on rewatch when you kind of come out of it, see the far side and see her also trying to identify with the car or otherwise, that relationship with the car and with metal going back, and also how that translates to a relationship with her parent, that kind of cold, almost functional relationship that she has with her parents is about the same as a relationship somebody has with their car.
It's so with the relationship she had with her parents seems very cold.
Yeah. There's no sense both at the start and subsequently when she's eating the cereal or whatever and the thing. There's no kind of how you doing. Even her relationship with them where she locks them in the room and stuff later on. There is no idea that they're looking out for each other or that there's any kind of nested feeling that would sit between father-son, mother-son, mother-daughter, father-daughter, any of those kind of relationships. And so it's a very unusual relationship. And I've seen some readings of the film that basically say, Alexia was always bad. You can see from the start of the film because he's kicking the back of the parent's chair and humming and then takes the seatbelt off. Those are normal kid things. And if my kid does that, they're just looking for attention, essentially, is all that's happening. That's what happened. And so for me, that bit at the start, that scene at the start, is about the fact that we can see that the young version of Alexia just doesn't get any attention from the parents. They want a reaction, they want something from it, and it results in an accident where they get a metal plate and stuff in their head, and it's almost very sad. It's not the fact that they were a bad person that caused the serial killerness or otherwise. It's the lack of love and the lack of empathy and stuff that existed between the breakup, or that's certainly what's indicated to me.
Yeah, it does seem very, like, from the very beginning, an emotional disconnect there between her and her parents. And with the car, it's almost like she's almost been seen as a burden or as just kind of in the way.
Yeah. It obviously, like, again, she has become like the byproduct of their relationship in some way, but not as a child to be loved and cared, but just as a waste product in some ways, which is terribly sad to think about.
Yeah. So did the accident and the metal plate that she had affect her ability to feel empathy or affect her ability to feel or to have sympathy, I guess? Did it almost make her, prevent her from feeling certain emotions?
But, and again, I think that's suggested certainly within the film, but I think actually that's what the film's about by the end of it. So actually, come full circle, is it just the accident? Is it the metal plate that kind of blocks her off from other people? Or is it about love? And if the film's about anything, it's about the power of types of love or unconditional love, or, in the cases of attraction and lust and desire and those things, and kind of showing those up against each other all the time and kind of showing the differences of them. And there's all sorts of like overtones about sex and homoeroticness and all. There's loads of that stuff just piled the whole way through the film. That again, I think if anything, is so much that it ends up confusing rather than explaining some ways.
So is it almost, because I agree with what you kind of started on the top with, is that there's a lot. It's about a lot of things. It tries to explore a lot of things. Is it too much? Does it try too much?
I think it. Well, it's one of those classic things. Yes, I think it tries too much, but also that's what makes it incredibly rewatchable. And I also think that's what makes it so powerful as you're making your way through. Because, like an awful lot of provocateur films, they just want you to feel as the things are happening on the screen without explaining anything to you. It's like, well, what do you think about this scene? What do you think about this scene? What do you think about this scene? And it does so much of that often it can be a bit overwhelming to kind of go, oh, I can't really formulate full thoughts about what the way this all connects together, because I'm just feeling loads of different things about it. Whether it's when she's having sex with a car, whether she's dancing with Vincent in the room, or whether she's dancing on top of the bus or the fire engine. Like, all of those things provoke different emotions in you, and you're just kind of like, oh, all the while thinking about, do I sympathise with the serial killer? This person that I can't really bring myself to like in some way. So it's just a lot, and I think every time I watch it, I kind of come away with, I often feel like I should be writing stuff down and pausing it every 2 minutes. It's that kind of film in its own way. So yeah, I don't know, how did you feel about it, kind of first time versus second time, Steve?
Well, the first time when the kind of when the switch happens, when she changes her identity, I thought it was going to be something completely different. So you kind of get settled in the first 30 minutes, and then things completely change, and then it becomes something completely different. I think almost the focus changes a lot from the first 30 minutes to the rest of the movie. It does. And so I wasn't really sure what to get into. I think there was a lot of what is going on, and I think I didn't really. There was a lot of wondering what the metal on the car and all those things meant the first time. There was a lot of what the hell is going on, and then the second time I still had a lot of that. But I think the second time I had more of an impression that the last 3/4 of the film is really about the captain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much about his grief, his desire to fill this void in his life. He's not interested in sexual relationships or anything. He's all consumed by the absence of his son and everything that happened there. And he's not, when the son returns, or Alexia comes into his life again, he's not prepared to entertain discussion about it. You know, it's very much about just filling that hole in his life when other people he's blind to everything else, and he sort of doesn't want to shake that because he can categorize it in his own head. But of course the events of the film kind of make him do that anyway, in this incredibly powerful, like that scene towards the end is just, again, it's a lot. It's a lot happens there, and a lot for you to think about and take in as it goes. But yes, he's such an interesting character, because you do empathise with his pain. You do see what's going on with him. You do sort of want good things to happen to him, even if it means letting the serial killer kind of person re-identify into his life. I think as a viewer, you're kind of on board with this actually would be a good thing for him, which again is a very confusing kind of mixed signal kind of feeling to be having in the film.
Yeah, I think he's so desperate to feel that those feelings again, and after he finds out that it's not really his son, he doesn't care. Like he wants that connection. She has a chance to leave too, and she comes back. You know, she decides to stay, and so it's almost like they find comfort in each other. They find what they need in each other in a really twisted way.
Yeah, I mean that scene in the bus is incredible. I think that kind of bit where, again, that's where it's about gender identity and gender roles within society, with Alexia identifying as a male on that bus, and then looking around and seeing what other males think and how they treat other females, and then looking at the other female in the bus and kind of looking and thinking, right, do I want to go back into that world? That's the life that I fled, and actually realizing that the place and identity and space that he has within the captain's world is actually a lot better and something that he wants and embraces. And he goes back to test it. He goes back to see what happens at that stage, because he originally goes back and tries to and thinks about killing the captain.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting part as well, because okay, why do you think his initial thing was it just instinct and natural instinct at that stage that he would go back and do it, or what's your feelings?
I think so. I think it's just that's the way that that Alexei has been solving problems. Is that's the solution to everything? Is kill them. She killed everyone. She killed her parents. She killed all the people that they interacted with. Just another person in the way. But why do you think the captain wasn't killed? Of all people.
Well, I think
because he did show kindness, he did show empathy, he did accept her, he did teach her things, he did kind of bring them under his wing. So that's kind of what because he gave attention that the parents never did.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually, especially in that scene where he messes up, the CPR and all that kind of stuff, he makes mistakes and is forgiven for them and supported through it, which is again a new feeling for him. And I think actually the act of killing him is about that confused state that Adrian finds himself in, which is, oh god, these are new feelings for me, this is very scary for me. I have to deal with this or put this out in some way and deal with it. And it's like, right, if they kill again, then they'll get a new set of feelings that go with it. But it's almost in that scene where he's passed out that he sees actually a change in the roles. The captain's almost like the child in that stage, and he takes on a paternal maternal role at that stage to getting him through that bit. He's sort of helpless and needs the help to get through. She knows there's something going on with him, doesn't know whether he's sick, doesn't know what it is, but kind of supports him through that moment. And it's such a lovely moment of that moment where they're holding the knife, stick, pick thing, whatever it is that he has, and then realising, actually, that can wait. And he spends the rest of the film, I think, going about and testing this relationship in a lot of different ways then about, oh, well, what is this for me? What who is it and who is this person to me? What does he actually think about me? If he finds out who I really am, because, again, there's that uncertainty.
Yeah, that's... So I'd wonder why Adrian didn't... It's like the bus scene is a really great scene, and it's how someone is perceived based on their gender is, the way that the perception of who they were on the bus, because they weren't really talking to Adrian, they were talking to the other woman on the bus. And so is that why they didn't leave? Or do you think was it the captain that brought them back? Is it a combination of things? Because if they would have left on the bus, what's the next stop? I mean, what is their...
Yeah, I mean,
go where?
Probably all of those things in its own right, but I definitely think it was just a realization of what society outside of that bubble that he was within, the captain, actually looks like, as if he's forgotten. And this is the first time in his life he'd been presenting as male, and he could keep being male within that thing. As soon as he steps outside and he takes the cap off, or whatever, people will see it as a pregnant female, and again, I think gender identity becomes another big key theme around that time of, like, right, what is it to be a woman in society? What is it to be a man in society? What do the physical aspects, where you present and show yourself, define your identity, and all of those kind of things that go with it, that have become, like, this was 2021. This has only become more and more topical as the years have went by from that point. And I think he just decides there's no point running away yet, because that's actually a lot scarier than what I find myself in now and going back to the captain.
Another great scene I thought was when the ex-wife comes and she
Mm,
finds that not really their son, and that realization of, I don't know who you are, but you're not you're not my son. That was pretty. Again, I think it dives into grief and acceptance and all those things of. I mean, how does someone recover from losing their child, and
yeah,
or just the child never coming back? So that need to just to not feel the grief, and to feel comfort again, and to feel like I can relax again. You're willing to accept pretty much anything just to make the pain stop.
yeah. Well, again, it brings into question what actually happened to the son, Adrian, because there are two positions around dealing with the disappearance are incredibly different. Between the captain and the wife, she obviously left him. That's not unusual for a missing child or a lost child to be the breakup between two people or otherwise. But interestingly, she basically says, "I don't care who you are, I don't know who you are, just make sure he's okay and
Hmm.
look after him." That's such a kind of a strange thing, because you've basically found somebody's an imposter. You might even know, because obviously the pictures circulating on the news, that there's this serial killer on the loose that looks like this. You may know that, but it's all right. You kind of put that aside and say, look, just be good to this person, whatever you do, whoever you may be. And it's sort of a strange realization to come to in its own right, which makes it, all the more interesting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So here's the big question. I think the captain killed the son.
Oh,
I think the captain's the killer. And that's where his major grief comes. And that's why he kind of has to accept the return of this person, because he's riddled with guilt. And that he is, can't find him. So when this person comes and fills the gap, it's a way for him to deal his own grief. It's why it doesn't matter what he or she looks like. It's why he can't discuss it. It's why you can't face the reality of him having done what he did. And I think the wife knows it as well.
huh. Yeah, because you never really get the feeling that the captain really believes it's his son. There's always
Yeah,
this willful ignorance
yeah,
that you he never seems all that convinced that he really truly believe he wants to believe it. He doesn't believe it is. He wants to believe that it is, even from the very beginning,
yeah.
because it never quite seems right. But when it's confirmed, that's when you start to wonder, okay, what really happened? But yeah, I didn't think about that, about him
That
killing
only
the
came
son.
to me on the last watch, I have to say, because the idea that he gets asked about the DNA test and he went, "Oh, we don't need no DNA test." When he
Hmm.
gets confronted by, is it Conscience, you call him, the other firefighter, and all of that kind of stuff, he doesn't want to hear. He doesn't want to know. He might have even killed him, as it goes. And done that at the time, and at the end kind of coming full circle and going, like, accepting for who he is or whatever, calling him by Adrian Best's proper name, Alexis, at the end, as that part of acceptance at the end of who he is. It almost feels like he's got a second chance at redemption, at whatever happened to son, whether it was an accident or whatever it was. But it also creates a nice duality between the serial killer meeting the serial killer, or the killer, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
and them finding each other and finding solace in each other. And I haven't seen that theory anywhere else, but it struck me in the last viewing to kind of say his way that he's dealing with his grief is a bit unusual, for exactly the reasons that you said. He doesn't want to discuss it, and we never believe as the viewer that he ever was in any doubt this wasn't it, that this was his son.
Hmm. So why does the car impregnate her, or does the car impregnate her?
But to me, they are kindred souls. They are kindred. They are compatible with each other at that time. She's a cold serial killer that's very much like a machine, existing through life like a machine, and then mates up with the car. But as the film goes on, she's carrying that soulless machine-like existence inside her while she's changing and finding and embracing love around it, and is almost self-hating her own body at that stage, because the scene with the squeezing the nipples and the oil coming out is actually probably the most brutal within the entire film, in some right. But that self-hate of her body and of her femininity and all this stuff is sort of like a product of this kind of her embracing humanity and her embracing this new person that she is. She didn't know existed in some ways, and again, there's your gender identity and all of that gender roles kind of playing in again, but it becomes a bit that's actually living inside her and growing all the time, and she wants to get rid of it. The scene where she tries to self-abort, again, really grim in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
but just so powerful the whole way through, that idea of her every time the wrappings come off and the belly's a bit bigger, and having to wrap it up a bit more, and having to shy and hide away who you are. I mean, that's some deep shit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. It's, and it so you almost get the feeling, like on the second watch, I started to get more of a feeling that he started to hate the aspects that were female, or the pregnancy and the body and all those things, almost rejecting those things and not wanting them, or not. It wasn't only to hide because she didn't want to get caught, but it was to almost reject those things and to almost pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And that idea that it's represented as a machine or metal, very alien, or things that are not natural, only I think it accentuates that feeling, if you know what I mean, even visually. And there's a lot of work with colour in and around that stage. So around that stage of the film, when the pregnancy's taken over the body and stuff, there's a lot of hues of neon and blues and reds of that kind of style, and reverse shots of colours in the foreground, colours in the background being different, and it all kind of makes this kind of even more surreal place and atmosphere. What do you think? What do you think about the dancing? The dancing's one of my favourite bits in it now, I have to say. That kind of thing, because I remember first time it happens is when she's basically running away to get out the door at that stage, and the music goes on, and it's the she's not there by the zombies, I think, and he turns around, and this guy that's pumping himself full of steroids to keep his masculinity and strength, these things that are really important to him, all of a sudden is dancing in what can only be described as a very feminine style. From it, what's your feelings about that's the first proper dancing?
I think it kind of struck me as a form of vulnerability and just kind of letting loose and letting go of a facade, or kind of showing them your belly, or in a way, kind of being vulnerable and not hiding, and just they connect in a very special way there too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it is the first moment to connect, and even though he still runs away again at the end of it, it is that idea that for all of the gender roles, facade, the way that we present, the grief that presents at the start, all the rest of it, when you strip that away and people act naturally in a fluid way, it's a way of expressing that you're ready to be loved, or that you're ready to be accepted by somebody and say, look, this is who I am, see me for who I am. And even though there's a sort of playfulness, there's a physicality to it as it goes, it's sort of this really kind of first, almost like a melodrama kind of film in its own right, where it's sort of presented and kind of takes it back a little bit. And then we'll have the next dance scene, which was honestly this homoerotic rave thing that goes on with everybody with their tops off and everybody very muscular. It's sort of it's right out there in some ways, and they're really enjoying it. It's all very physical kind of thing. And then Adrian dances on top of the bus in that feminine style again, and they're horrified. They're absolutely horrified by what they're seeing, even though it's sort of a representation of the captain's dancing, and that he's saying to the captain, I see you. But it's also the bit where it's the confirmation of you're not my son, I
Yeah.
think that's the captain knows at that stage. Okay, and there's so much happens around those dancing scenes that is not words. There's not anything else. It's about this kind of expression of person, and like I say, I love the reaction of everybody else to it. To basically go from that, basically banging into each other, almost like mosh pit kind of stuff, to then this tying somebody to the top of a bus and they just kind of waving their arms about a bit.
Why that moment to dance on top of the fire truck? What is it? Just because Adrian felt like they were ready to just express themselves and felt comfortable to enough to just be themselves and to let go? Is that part of it, you think?
Yeah, well, I think for Adrian, it's very much about him letting go and feeling free to express who he is now. Of all the other times he's been guarded, protected, doesn't want to didn't want to speak for large parts of it in case he'd give himself away or otherwise. But now he's like, this is who I am. This is how I feel. It sort of mimics the dance at the very start of the film when she's dancing on top of the car. Lots of very, showing her ass, kind of being very suggestive and all the rest of it. And this is suggestive, but in a much more... It's a very different style, the how she's doing it, but it just means that when the captain walks out and sees her, he can't engage in front of the other males with him/her at that stage, but he also knows that it's a representation of that time when they were dancing to She's Not There by the Zombies, and that also this is a very feminine person that's actually on top of the bus, and maybe not the son. Very powerful scene.
And the captain almost seemed nervous for everyone else to find out that it wasn't his son. Almost like Adrian would be vulnerable, wouldn't be safe around the other firefighters when they found out who Adrian really is or isn't or whatever. So that's also, I think, speaks to kind of gender roles and expectations, and because as Adrian, as who they thought he was, he's safe because he's one of the guys, and
that's right.
We're in a mosh pit, and we're all, we're bumping shoulders and having a good time. But the moment they know that it's Adrian isn't exactly who they thought he was, he's potentially in danger around all these other men.
But isn't it really interesting that actually none of them actually believed it was his son in the first place because they could see. But it was like the confirmation of that to say that it was all right that it wasn't just his son. But when they found out that he was also a female, they were repulsed by it. And as if that's the bit that broke them. And again, really, I think it's really clever and really a good representation of that kind of toxic style of men who are just like comfortable with things being the way they are, and as soon as they are represented as something different, they have fear about it themselves. They can't share it with each other. They're just kind of like, no, this is wrong. This is not what it's supposed to be, and they're sort of horrified by it. And again, 3 years before now, by God, this film has a lot of it's like a script for the next 10 years of existence, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's almost like Adrian was a part of the club, and now he can't be a part of the club.
Can't be.
Or it's almost like he's not accepted because not just because it's a different person, because of who Adrian is.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same person it was 5 minutes ago.
That they were bumping into and they were happy to carry along and do it. Like, it's almost like they've just completely ostracized themselves by just how they identified themselves by dancing. Regardless of how their hair was cut, what they were wearing, all the rest of it, it was just, this was a step too far. It was like the wool had been pulled away from their eyes, or pulled over their eyes, if you want to put it that way. I think it's a very telling scene, and especially, as I say, when the captain walks out and looks at him and kind of looks around himself a little bit and goes, he doesn't know how to deal with it. Because he does understand and he does recognise, and actually, as we see from the subsequent scene, he accepts it, but he couldn't do it within the other males and the people that he had power over, which I think's, the people in power in that thing couldn't stand up and say, what is wrong with you? You know, this is still my son. Very powerful.
It is. So okay, I guess now we go to the baby. So the baby comes out almost like a hybrid.
Yes.
It has the metal spine and seems like part he's half and half. I kind of felt like Adrian delivered almost redemption
Yeah.
or delivered something to the captain. Like the captain is the main character in the story.
Yeah. It comes full circle. But he essentially, by accepting and loving somebody else or guiding that, he got a son back, if that makes sense. And I mean, there's so much in the scene before that where she tries to kiss him after the towel falls, and you know it's left in no doubt to the captain that it's not just not a son, it's a female, and it's tested whether, with the knowledge of that, whether that changes his relationship with Alexia. And so she goes to kiss him, and he will not accept that that's part of the relationship. It is not a sexual relationship. And so Alexei has sort of confirmation that this isn't like her own father. This isn't like this is actually somebody who unconditionally loves them for who they are and accept them, and as a thank you, almost delivers this baby or this son to him to kind of fix him in some ways. He's not the person to be fixed, because it's sort of Alexei's dead, I think, at the end of this.
Yeah.
And so that's passed on. So it's like almost the gift of life that Alexei gives at the end. So it's sort of like very beautiful, but all of the steps that lead up to that kind of all pay off in this idea that unconditional love can exist between two people that are not naturally father and son.
And also the baby, I felt like was kind of exploring the theme of we pass on our own experiences to our own kids, or we pass on through generations the events that happen to us. And you know, there's I don't know if it's been scientifically proven, but there's a theory that it's in our DNA that we pass on certain things to our in our family trees. So I think that's excuse me, it's kind of, I felt like I was exploring that idea too.
Yeah, very much so. And even the fact that, you know, that thing after childbirth, that skin to skin contact is made immediately as soon as possible with the parents, the natural parents, as much as you can. I mean, that very much happens here straight away. But you know, between the metal spine, what looks to be blood as oil in the baby and stuff as well. Again, there's unconditional love seems to be between the captain and that baby already, even though it's no gender relation of him at all, except through his shared love of Alexis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something.
It really is something. There's no doubt about it. I think she's just such a wonderfully complex filmmaker. That this is a body horror movie, there's no doubt about that. Raw is a body horror movie, no doubt about that either. But it's in those moments of uncomfortableness that you really start to think about, okay, what the hell is actually going on here? What is it actually? How do I feel? How do I feel at each of these moments? And like I say, there's maybe too much going on, but it's that too much going on that gives it its power and kind of like, right, this is a bit nuts, bit out there, but also is a thinker of a film in ways that other more mundane films just don't reach those levels.
When she changes her identity to evade the police, that whole scene was brutal.
The breaking of the nose. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
And the black eye. Yeah, that was rough.
It's an incredible performance, like I have to say, by Agath, isn't it? You we call her. It's just such a powerful, like there's such intensity at all times throughout the film, and the way that she carries herself, and represents the whole way through. It's just like, right, okay, and sort of is believable because of that intensity as both a male and a female, in its own right, you know. So I think it's a hell of a role to be taken. It's one of those ones. How do you cast that?
You need to be really committed to for something like this as an actor. To you may not even know what's happening, but you have to commit to the performance, and I definitely do.
And for that to be somebody's first role, that's ridiculous.
What was the first role?
Yeah, first
Wow.
acting role in a other than a couple of shorts, but yeah, it's absolutely
Wow.
insane.
So is Raw close to as much going on, or is this one? Does this one have more going on?
I think this one has more going on. I actually like Raw better as a film because it's kind of a bit more simplistic's the wrong word, because it's definitely not a simple movie. That's one of those things, but it's much more easy to see as the film's going on what that's about, if you know what I mean. But within the body horror and all the rest of it, it makes you uncomfortable in a lot of scenes. There's no doubt about it. But as probably said before, I think about Raw just about every single day. Like it's truly one of my favorite movies of all time, uh, because of the things that it does and the questions that it asks, especially about being young and growing up and all of those things. So yeah, I heartily recommend it. I've probably done a good job of overselling it for sure, because I know that not everybody loves Raw. Whereas I think Titane is actually more accepted by people as being, you know, great. But it does have the young character of Justine is Justine in Raw. So I often wonder if it's the same world that these movies
Oh,
exist in. But yeah, and it might give some more meaning to some of her scenes within this in some way.
really?
I mean, not overtly, but it will make you think. It will make you think that definitely about what's being done to her and why she puts up with so much, let's say, abuse between the her getting caught
Oh yeah.
and the bell ring, and then the biting and the chewing that goes on. It's yeah.
Well, did you Raw next? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, we're all so good. That might be the end of our friendship, though, Steve. That might be it all done. I don't know where you go afterwards.
No, I think if we watch Martyrs, that might be the end. I
Yeah, we
think you
could do,
would
we
be
could
like,
do, we could
I'm
do the
out.
French extremities. We could do. There's a couple more gasping away films, although we've done Into the Void and Irreversible.
Irreversible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you know, we've run the gamut of
Extreme.
extreme. Yeah, for sure.
I think, and I guess you have like the human centipedes and things like that, where they're not as they're more. I mean, they're more shock and kind of for the sake of being shocking. Not well, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like exploitation cinema in general is the idea that you could you could represent more nudity, more horrific things, as long as you tied it up in some sort of political message or meaning. And so, in some cases, exploitation cinema, that political message was kind of tacked on just because, oh, we have a movie with lots of bums and boobs and all of that kind of stuff and lots of graphic sex, we'll better make it about racism or something. And other ones, it's very much set out. So, like, I would say that David Cronenberg's the one who really set the bar for that in the late 70s and then early 80s, as insofar as, right, here's stuff to challenge it, but also is always about something, like always about something much more deeper and otherwise. And people like Ducano, etc., jumped off the back of that and have taken a run with it. And even the new French extremity films like Martyrs and Inside and Frontiers and all of those ones sort of did something similar and just said, look, you can't be too graphic because people will always watch. It'll be one of those things people can't take their eyes away from. So To what end? What are we doing it for? So lots of those movies to check out and more being made, which is always good.
Frontiers sounds familiar.
I've thoughts on Frontiers. I don't think it's that great a movie. I enjoyed it, but I think it's sort of it misses the mark in its extreme representations of things versus what its message is about. Again, very obvious what the message is about, but yeah, cool movies.
Yeah, I think Raw would be a good one.
Yeah, look forward to that.
Yeah. So, Titane, any other? I mean, there's a lot, but any other thoughts on this
Any
one?
other thoughts on Titane? Nothing that I can really think of that I've missed so far, but I'm no doubt that if I watch it again, there'll be another lot of thoughts that came to mind that I hadn't thought about at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was the one that I saw the trailer for, I think when it was released. Mm-hmm. I was like, I should watch that, and so I just never got around to it. But
yeah, really interestingly though, it won the Palme d'Or that year in the Cannes Film Festival. So it was recognised as being a really powerful work even then. I'm just trying to see what else it beat out that year. So it beat out The French Dispatch. Red Rocket by Sean Baker is a very good movie. Benedetta by Paul Verhoeven. Nitram by Justin Kurzel. Drive My Car by Hamaguchi. Yeah, a lot of very good movies. Worst Person in the World, Joachim Trier. Yeah, a lot of great movies that have built at this video that year and won. Palme d'Or doesn't usually get it wrong in terms of presenting really great movies.
Interesting. I want to see some Von Trier movies. Von Trier movies.
Yeah. Well, that's Joachim Von Trier, but the Lars is the one that did Antichrist and Melancholia and all of that sick shit.
So many movies to watch.
There are. That's for sure.
Yeah,
it's always good.
Well, cool. Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Let's do Raw soon.
Yeah. Well, keep them coming. Keep them going. Yeah. We'll see if we can expand the crew of people that don't mind this kind of taking a leap of faith. Maybe is probably a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we get Jared to watch Raw.
Oh, that would be good. He'd love it.
I hate this movie. But
yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. Cool. So until next time, Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Patreon forums. You can find me on various book podcasts, or you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Chris Mohan, MOHAN.
Nice. And you can also find me on Page Chewing. And if you'd like to join us for these types of discussions, join our forums and sign up for them. And we love to add to our group of friends. We have a very small, tightly knit kind of group, and always willing to add new friends to the list. So go check it out. And until the next time, we will talk very soon.